I mean, it's like, you're naive, you're just adolescent. There's a lot that you just don't know. I mean, and conflict resolution is not high on the list. So
right.
You spend a lot of time together.
What's good, guys? Today, we're diving into something that's going to change everything you thought you knew about Bell Biv DeVoe. Ricky Bell just opened up about what really happened behind the scenes, and trust me, this story is way deeper than anyone expected. Before we get into all this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to share isn't just about music, it's about survival, addiction, and how the industry nearly destroyed one of R&B's most iconic groups. Listen, when I tell you that BBD wasn't just a New Edition spinoff, but actually a desperate move for survival, I mean it.
Well, it's just all a part of just aspirations and achievements we want to do since the very beginning.
And when you hear how Ricky Bell went from platinum success to complete broke, you're going to understand why this story needs to be told. Think about it. How does someone go from selling millions of records to not being able to pay their bills? The answer is going to shock you, and it's going to make you look at Poison in a whole new light. Let's break down how Bell Biv DeVoe actually came together, because this wasn't just another group formation. This was a survival strategy that changed R&B forever. When Bobby Brown got kicked out of New Edition and Ralph was thinking about going solo, the remaining members had to make some serious decisions.
It's like, as a group and just as an entertainer, I mean, everybody hopefully one day wants to be able to be significant enough to be able to tell their story that enough people would want to hear it. So
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who had just turned Janet Jackson into a superstar, saw something special in Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, and Ronnie DeVoe. These were the guys who weren't getting lead vocals in New Edition, the ones always in the background. But instead of trying to make them into another R&B harmony group, they had a completely different vision. Think about how revolutionary this was for 1989. They took 3 guys from a clean-cut R&B group and completely reinvented them with this hip-hop edge. This wasn't just about changing their image. This was about creating an entirely new sound that nobody had heard before. The way they approached Poison tells you everything about how different this was. Instead of the polished New Edition sound, they came with this aggressive, street-smart vibe that nobody expected. The lyrics weren't about sweet love songs anymore. They were warning guys about dangerous women and flipping the whole R&B narrative on its head. What's really fascinating is how much resistance they got from the industry at first. Record executives heard Poison and thought it was too aggressive, too raw.
It really does, man, because, when we, of course we had the history with New Edition.
Yeah.
When we started Bell Biv DeVoe, it was kind of like a new act thing. Even our deal was just like a new act, how we approached it.
They couldn't understand how these guys from New Edition could make this kind of music. But BBD knew they had something special, and they fought for their vision. Let's talk about what happened when Poison actually dropped, because this single didn't just become a hit, it completely revolutionized the music industry. The song exploded in a way that nobody, not even the group, expected. First off, let's look at the numbers because they're mind-blowing. The album went platinum 4 times over. We're talking about selling millions of copies in an era when that actually meant something. They had 5 hit singles back-to-back, and Poison became this cultural phenomenon that transcended genres. But here's where it gets interesting. The success came with this immense pressure that nobody was prepared for. Suddenly, these guys who were used to being background members in New Edition were thrust into the spotlight. They went from being the ones nobody paid attention to being the ones everyone was watching. The money started flowing in fast, too fast. Ricky Bell later admitted that they weren't ready for that kind of success. Nobody taught them about financial management or how to handle sudden wealth. They were just young guys from Boston who suddenly had more money than they'd ever seen. What's really telling is how the industry treated them during this time. Even though they were selling millions of records, they were still seen as this side project, this experiment that happened to work. The respect didn't match the success, and that disconnect started affecting everything. The touring schedule was brutal too. They were performing night after night, city after city after city, with no real break. That kind of pressure, combined with sudden fame and money, created the perfect storm for what would happen next. Let's dive into something really serious: Ricky Bell's personal struggles during BBD's peak. Because while everyone saw the success on the outside, he was fighting battles nobody knew about behind the scenes. The pressure of maintaining that level of success started taking its toll. Ricky has openly admitted that he turned to drugs to cope. It started small, but like many addiction stories, it escalated quickly. He was spending thousands of dollars a week just to maintain his habit, all while trying to keep up this image of being a superstar. What's particularly heartbreaking is how he describes this period. He said he reached a point where he didn't even care if he lived or died.
And speaking of Hiram Hicks, he was our road manager, and photographer with New Edition.
So he was all of that.
And then he actually played us the demo to Poison one day.
Think about that. Someone who had achieved everything they dreamed of was so lost in addiction that death seemed like a viable option. The financial impact was devastating too. Despite all the platinum records and sold-out shows, Ricky found himself completely broke. He was spending every dollar he had on drugs, maxing out credit cards, borrowing money, anything to feed his addiction. This wasn't just about losing money. This was about losing himself. His wife, Amy Correa Bell, became his lifeline during this period. She gave him an ultimatum that probably saved his life. Get help or she's gone. That moment of clarity, that realization that he was about to lose everything, became the turning point in his story. But here's what's really powerful about Ricky sharing this. He's not just talking about addiction. He's exposing how the music industry sets artists up for these kinds of struggles. Nobody prepared them for fame. Nobody taught them how to handle success. They were just thrown into the deep end and expected to swim. Let's talk about something that really exposes the music industry's true nature, how they handled BBD during their struggles. Because the way the business treated them when things got tough tells you everything you need to know about how the industry really works. When Poison was hot, everyone wanted a piece of BBD. Record executives, promoters, managers, they were all there with their hands out, taking their cut. But the moment sales started declining, these same people disappeared faster than their royalty checks. What's really disturbing is how the industry actually contributed to their problems. They were pushing these young artists to perform constantly, to maintain an image, to keep the money flowing. Nobody was asking if they were okay, if they needed help, if they were handling the pressure. The only question was, can you still perform? The way radio started treating them is particularly telling. When their sound wasn't considered hot anymore, stations just stopped playing their music. It didn't matter that they were still making quality records. The industry had decided it was time to move on to the next thing. Think about this, the same executives who were praising them as geniuses for mixing R&B with hip-hop were now saying their sound was outdated. The same people who made millions off their success weren't there when they needed support.
Setting up a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you have to have a balance between what you want to do. Do you want to really make most of the pot, or do you want to just seem like you're making most of the pot, and go with a big and you're just really famous?
That's not just business. That's exploitation. And let's talk about the contracts they signed early in their career. Like many young artists, they didn't understand what they were signing away. By the time they realized how bad these deals were, it was too late. They were locked into agreements that gave away most of their publishing rights and royalties. Let's break down how BBD managed to turn things around, because their comeback story is just as important as their rise to fame. This wasn't just about making hit records again. This was about reclaiming their dignity and purpose. First off, Ricky had to get clean. He checked himself into rehab, faced his demons head on, and did the hard work of rebuilding himself from the ground up. But here's what's really powerful. He didn't just focus on getting sober. He started understanding why he turned to drugs in the first place. The group's approach to music changed completely too. Instead of chasing trends or trying to recreate Poison, they started making music that meant something to them. They weren't worried about radio play or chart positions anymore. They were focused on creating something authentic. What's really fascinating is how they rebuilt their business model. They took control of their touring, started managing their own money, and made sure they understood every contract they signed. This wasn't just about making music. This was about taking back their power in the industry. The way they handled their legacy is particularly interesting. Instead of being bitter about the past, they used their experiences to help younger artists. They started talking openly about the pitfalls of fame, the importance of financial literacy, and the need for mental health support in the music industry. Their relationship with each other grew stronger too. Going through these struggles together created a bond that went beyond just being group mates. They became family, supporting each other through the hard times and celebrating each other's victories. Let's talk about what BBD means to music today, because their influence goes way beyond just Poison. They literally created a blueprint for how R&B groups could evolve and stay relevant across decades.
The fame part of it, the popularity part of it, is so attractive
Right.
to a lot of people. And I think that people are just kind of obsessed with just being famous as opposed to just doing good business and making money.
Look at how modern artists sample their music and reference their style. Everyone from Drake to The Weeknd has borrowed elements from what BBD created. That fusion of R&B and hip-hop that everyone does now. BBD was doing that back when people said it couldn't work. What's really powerful is how they've maintained their integrity through all the industry changes. When streaming took over and many artists from their era struggled to adapt, BBD found ways to connect with new audiences while keeping their core sound intact. The way they handle their live shows now is particularly impressive. Instead of just relying on nostalgia, they're still putting on high-energy performances that rival artists half their age. They're not just surviving. They're thriving in an industry that usually discards artists after a certain age. Their influence on younger artists goes beyond just music, too. They're actively mentoring new talent, teaching them about the business side of music, and showing them how to avoid the pitfalls they faced. That's not just about preserving their legacy. It's about making the industry better for the next generation. And let's talk about their impact on mental health awareness in the music industry. Ricky's openness about his addiction and recovery has helped break down the stigma around seeking help. He's shown that you can be strong and still admit when you need support. Let's dive into how BBD completely transformed their business approach, because this part of their story is just as important as their music. They went from being artists who just performed to becoming savvy entrepreneurs who understood every aspect of their business. Think about this. After getting burned by bad contracts early in their career, they started studying the music business like it was college. They learned about publishing rights, touring percentages, merchandising deals, everything that artists usually leave to managers and lawyers. What's really impressive is how they diversified their income streams. They weren't just relying on record sales anymore. They started investing in real estate, launching their own merchandise lines, and creating revenue streams that didn't depend on radio play or chart positions. The way they handle their touring business now is particularly smart. Instead of doing massive tours that drain their energy and resources, they're strategic about where and when they perform. They figured out how to make more money doing fewer shows, which is the kind of business acumen that keeps careers sustainable. Their approach to new technology and social media shows their adaptability too.
So on the tour bus, the studio, rehearsals, and just, in life, I spend more time with these guys than I do my own family.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally, we're just gonna bump heads, and we fought over everything, whether it was what to wear on stage one night to over a chick or whatever.
While many artists from their era resist streaming and digital platforms, BBD embraced these changes. They understood that connecting with fans directly through social media was just as important as making music. And let's talk about how they protect their brand now. Every business decision, every collaboration, every appearance is carefully considered. They're not just thinking about the immediate paycheck. They're thinking about the long-term impact on their legacy. Let's talk about something really powerful, how each member of BBD has evolved personally through this journey. Because this isn't just about music or business success. It's about three men who grew up in the spotlight and found their way through some seriously dark times. Ricky Bell's transformation is particularly inspiring. He's not just sober now. He's become this voice of hope for others struggling with addiction. When he speaks at recovery meetings or counsels younger artists, he's not speaking from theory, he's speaking from experience. That kind of authenticity can't be faked. Michael Bivins has evolved into this brilliant business strategist. Remember, this is the same guy who discovered Boys Tech Men at a high school talent show. He took all the lessons from BBD's struggles and turned them into this blueprint for developing new artists. He's not just thinking about hits, he's thinking about building sustainable careers. Ronnie DeVoe's growth in the real estate business shows how they've all learned to create security beyond music. He understood that fame is temporary, but property is permanent. Now he's teaching other artists about financial literacy and investment strategies. What's really fascinating is how their relationships with each other have deepened. They're not just group members anymore. They're brothers who've been through war together. The way they support each other's individual projects while maintaining the group's unity is pretty remarkable in an industry known for ego clashes. Their family lives have become a priority too. They've all figured out how to balance successful careers with being present fathers and husbands. That's not just personal growth, that's breaking the cycle of absent parents that's so common in the entertainment industry. Listen, we need to wrap this up by talking about what BBD's journey really means for the music industry and artists today. Because this isn't just about one group's success, struggles, and redemption. It's about understanding how to survive and thrive in an industry that often doesn't care if you live or die. Think about everything we've covered, from their revolutionary sound with Poison to Ricky's battles with addiction, from their financial struggles to their complete reinvention as businessmen. This is the kind of story that needs to be taught in music business classes because it covers every aspect of what can go right and wrong in an artist's career. What's particularly powerful about their story is how they've managed to maintain their integrity through it all. They never sold out, never compromised their values just for a quick check. Even when they were at their lowest, they found a way to climb back up without losing themselves in the process. The way they're giving back now is especially important. They're not just enjoying their success, they're actively working to make the industry better for the next generation. Whether it's through mentoring young artists, speaking about addiction recovery, or teaching financial literacy, they're using their experiences to help others avoid the same pitfalls. Before we wrap this up, drop a comment below with your thoughts on BBD's journey. What part of their story surprised you the most? Do you think today's artists could learn from their experiences? And most importantly, what do you think about Ricky's bravery in sharing his struggles with addiction? If you're finding these deep dives valuable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to keep exploring these important stories because understanding the real history of music helps us appreciate not just the songs, but the survival stories behind them. Remember, success isn't just about making hits, it's about building something that lasts. And BBD has shown us exactly how to do that, even when the odds are stacked against you. Stay informed, stay inspired, and I'll catch you in the next video.